Welcome, Human Biology. Today we're going to be talking about the circulatory system lab. So I'm going to be starting off with the identification list that's on the back of your circulatory system lab. So I'm going to be going over the blood vessels, the chambers, and the valves. In front of me I have two different models here that I'm going to be referring to, and I have a third one that I'll bring in at the end of the video to show you the parts on that one. Alright, so looking at the list, I'm going to start off with the blood vessels. The very first one is the aorta. The aorta is the largest artery of the human body, and it's this curved red blood vessel right up here, right in the middle of the. You have the three upper arteries right here, and you have this aorta right here that's right in the middle here. And so again, when I look at this one, this big red artery is the aorta. The next on the list is cardiac veins. Now, cardiac veins, models veins usually are represented with blue when they carry low oxygen blood. So cardiac veins, look at the cardiac muscle and all these blue veins that you see coming off throughout the whole cardiac muscle are the cardiac veins. So looking at this model here, all these blue blood vessels that feed the muscle of the heart are cardiac veins. The next one on the list is coronary arteries. Now, just like I talked about the cardiac veins were the blue ones, the red ones are the coronary arteries, and so they come out and they branch out through the whole cardiac muscle. Looking at this one, again, the blue is the cardiac veins, the red is the coronary arteries that feed the whole muscle of the heart. The next on the list is inferior vena cava. Inferior vena cava is part of a two large vein system here. And so if I turn both these models over to the side here, this on the bottom is an inferior vena cava right here. This is bringing blood back from the lower half of your body. And so if I look at this model right here, I'm put it together again for you. So looking at this model here, the bottom large vein on the right side of the heart is the inferior vena cava. So I'm going to skip to the superior vena cava. As we just got done talking about the inferior, the superior vena cava is the one that's on top. This one is bringing blood back from the upper part of the body. So superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Looking at this model here, and turn it slightly. Inferior vena cava, superior vena cava, bringing blood back from the upper part of the body, bringing blood up from the lower half of the body. Then you have the pulmonary arteries and pulmonary veins. Of all the blood vessels in the body, these are two that are most likely to confuse people because the pulmonary system is opposite of what you may think. In terms of pulmonary arteries carry low oxygen blood, and so on this heart model it will be blue. The pulmonary veins will actually be red because it carries oxygenated blood. So looking at this heart right here, where would be the pulmonary artery? It'll be right here. Okay, the one that's the most anterior. So again, this is the aorta. This is the superior vena cava right here. Superior vena cava, aorta, pulmonary artery. And that pulmonary artery, when I curve it over here, you see that it branches out to both lungs. Here it goes to the lung on one side, here it goes to the lungs on the other side. So again, superior vena cava, aorta, pulmonary artery comes up, branches out to both lungs. Looking at on this model is a purple vessel. This kind of shows you that it's an artery, but it carries low oxygen blood. So again, it's the most anterior blood vessel. When you look at the front of the heart here, comes up and it branches out towards the lung one way here, branches out towards the lung, and that way there as well. So that would be pulmonary arteries. Now the pulmonary veins, you have to take this heart and you have to completely flip it around. And on the back side, you see these two pairs of small red blood vessels. Those would be the two pairs of pulmonary veins coming back from each lung. So here's two that's coming back from one lung. Here's two coming back from the other lung. They both carry high oxygen blood. That's why they're red on this model. We take a look at this model. Pulmonary veins will be on the back side, so I'm going to flip this over. When I flip it over, again I see these two pairs. Here's one pair of pulmonary veins. Here's a second pair of pulmonary veins there. So that'll be the pulmonary system. Pulmonary artery in the front, pulmonary veins in the back. Okay. So that would be all the blood vessels. And the next section deals with chambers. And so if I open up both of these heart mouths here. Okay, looking at this one. Now the thing that you want to remember about the heart chambers is that the left and right chambers always goes with the patient, not your left and right. So understand that when I'm referring to chambers, this is the right side. This is the left side. This is the right. This is the left. So it's opposite of what you may think, because it always goes by the patient's right and left, not your right and left. Alright, so the four chambers. So looking at here, these two on the top here are the atrium. You have the right atrium and you have the left atrium. Right atrium, left atrium. The chambers on the bottom, the larger of the chambers, are the ventricles. Right ventricle, left ventricle. Right ventricle, left ventricle. So again, don't confuse the right and left. It's always the patient's right, not your right. Alright, and then the last section talks about the valves. So you have the bicuspid and tricuspid valve. Things to remember: the bicuspid is always on the left side. And so when I look at the left side of the heart here, the bicuspid would be in this region right here, in between the atrium and the ventricle. Over here you actually see the bicuspid valve. So right here, bicuspid, between the left atrium and the left ventricle. On this side, the right side, you have the tricuspid valve. So you have right atrium, tricuspid, right ventricle. Looking at this model right here, right atrium, tricuspid, right ventricle. The last two valves are the semilunar valves, the aortic and the pulmonary semilunar valve. The pulmonary semilunar valve is connected to the pulmonary artery. So here's the pulmonary artery that we talked about before. This valve right here that goes right to it is the pulmonary semilunar valve. Now this model, this was cut off before the valve. And so if I bring the front over here and I turn it around, the pulmonary valve would be right here while it enters into the pulmonary artery. Now the aortic valve goes to the beginning of the aorta. So I'm going to take this model right here and I'm going to turn it over just a little bit there, and you see right here is the aortic semilunar valve that goes to the aorta right here. So here, a little bit deeper in there, you see the aortic semilunar valve. On this model right here, I turn it, and right in here, deep inside there, you see the aortic semilunar valve. And then the last thing on the list is the tendinous cords. The tendinous cords attached to the bicuspid and tricuspid valve. So that would be the little strings. We call them the heartstrings. So here's all the tendinous cords right through here. On this model, you see it's been through using it quite a bit. It's been torn a little bit, but you can still see the remnants of the tendinous cords there. Alright, so that completes a list right there. So I'm going to finish up with one more model here as a brief summary here for all the components that we talked about. So the aorta right here, superior vena cava right next to it, inferior vena cava, pulmonary artery branches out to both different lungs, pulmonary veins, the pairs that are found in the back of the heart. Looking at the heart muscle, coronary arteries, cardiac veins, the blue. Looking at the chambers, opening up the heart. Right side, right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. And the valves, right side, tricuspid, left side, bicuspid. Aortic semilunar valve, and the last one that attaches to the pulmonary semilunar valve. The pulmonary semilunar valve will be deep and thin right here. That's connected to the pulmonary artery. And then the last thing, the tenuous cords, which connect to the bicuspid and tricuspid valve. So these are strings that we see there. Alright, so that is a brief overview of the heart models. So study this video with the list handy. Make sure you post in the forums if you have any questions on this. I will also have this picture that will be, I'll post this up on the forums for you, so you can look it over as well and study it. So here on one side is the outside of the heart, and the back side is the inside of the heart. So you'll have that also to study as well. Alright, so there you are. Take care.